Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville, fiber internet, streaming TV, home security, and automation in southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Maller Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis, lawmg.com. The IU School of Education, preparing teachers, scholars, and administrators to improve teaching in Indiana and around the world. education.indiana.edu. IU Alumni Association, connecting IU's network of alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships, advocacy, and volunteerism. alumni.iu.edu. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. With the election less than 2 weeks away, Indiana's Senate race remains one of the most competitive in the country. Statehouse reporter Brandon Smith sits down with the candidates. President Donald Trump will be in Indiana this weekend talking about agriculture. We visit an Indiana farmer whose message to Trump is getting lots of attention.
This has a mind of its own. I have never dreamed that we would get the response from this that we've had.
And we head to a rural Indiana cemetery to find out how it got its ghostly reputation. Ahead, a look at how Stepp Cemetery became one of the most haunted places in the state. Those stories, plus the latest news headlines from across the state, right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. Indiana's U.S. Senate race is one of the most critical in the country this year as Republicans and Democrats battle for control of Congress. Democrat Joe Donnelly hopes to fend off challenges from Republican Mike Braun and Libertarian Lucy Brenton. Brandon Smith sits down with the candidates.
You've talked both in your ads and in person at the debates a lot about how your willingness to support President Trump. How much do you worry, though, that that kind of message turns off the Democratic base?
Well, my base is the people of Indiana. I don't go to Washington as a Democrat or as a Republican. I go as our senator to do what's right for our state. And so when the president is right, I'm with him, like I have been 62% of the time on legislation, 77% of the time on judges. And so, for instance, on right to try legislation, I was with the president. On opioids legislation, we actually have a piece of legislation on his desk right now. And so we work together on that as well.
Notably, however, one of the votes you did not side with President Trump on was a very recent one that's generated a bit of attention, which is obviously Judge Kavanaugh. Talk to me about that decision-making process.
Sure. As
you thought, I mean, in the context of you were running for re-election, we're a month away as
right.
The vote was being taken
But
place.
Even while I'm running for re-election, my first job is to do what's right for the people of Indiana and to do what's right for our country. With Judge Kavanaugh, I used the same process I used when I voted for Justice Neil Gorsuch, President Trump's first pick. And Judge Kavanaugh, when you saw his testimony before the committee, I had very grave concerns about his impartiality and about his judicial temperament.
When you talk about working for Hoosiers, though, do you think a majority of people in Indiana wanted Brett Kavanaugh on the court?
The exact number, I don't know one way or the other. Perhaps it leaned that way. But my job isn't just to be a fax machine. My job is to do what's right for our country while taking all of the information from our state as well.
I can't think of too many Republicans in Indiana who've lost by railing against Obamacare. Are you concerned that Obamacare, even now, is still unpopular with Hoosiers and therefore your position on it will be unpopular with Hoosiers?
Well, I think what you need to do is ask any family in our state who has someone with a pre-existing condition. But here's the interesting thing about this, is Mike Braun has said he's for pre-existing conditions, but he supports a lawsuit that would take it away if the lawsuit is successful. He supported a Senate bill that would have taken away coverage for pre-existing conditions. And so he says one thing, but his actions show something completely different.
I want to talk a little bit about tariffs. There are Hoosiers who really like this idea of tariffs.
Right.
I think, of course, about the steelworkers, and others, particularly farmers, who really don't like how this is played out. How do you, as a policymaker, balance those two competing interests?
Because I don't believe they're intertwined. We can do two things at the same time. This situation with the steelworkers is not new. I've testified before the International Trade Court on a number of occasions on behalf of our steelworkers in Northwest Indiana. I'll have their back every time. But fixing that should not result in the next step being $200 billion of tariffs on our farmers. And I met with the president personally and said, Mr. President, look, these tariffs are a dagger aimed at the heart of our farmers. And I urged him to find an off-ramp.
I can't imagine it's a super popular position to vote against tax cuts for Hoosiers, but that's what you did in voting against the tax reform package. So how do you justify that vote to the average?
How do I justify it? So it would be like the parents going out on a shopping spree and giving the kids in the house the bill. No parent would ever do that. That's what this tax bill was. I'm not in the business of piling up huge debt for our kids in order to give huge tax breaks to the very, very richest people in our country.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thank you very much.
Republican challenger Mike Braun shot at Donnelly's seat as energizing conservatives and bringing in big names like Donald Trump Jr., who was in the state earlier this week for a rally to support Braun. We talked to Braun about Obamacare, tax reform, and the tough Senate campaign.
I want to talk first about a charge you've leveled at Joe Donnelly a lot in this campaign, which is the idea that he says one thing here in Indiana and then does something different in D.C. But his voting record is 62% of the time with President Trump. Isn't that the sort of independence that Hoosiers have come to expect from their senators?
On all of the important legislation, and that would be Obamacare, originally voting for it, and then he voted against its repeal, voted against tax reform. And I think that was a big gamble because it's now, I think, starting to take hold. Voted for the Iran deal. That's what you're judged on. And I'm going there because I've not been happy with really either side. I've not been enamored with what conservatives have done. I think we haven't produced.
You did touch on some of the things I wanted to talk about, but I actually want to start with something in terms of the individual topics a little different, which is the idea of tariffs. On the one hand, steelworkers have been very happy about what the president has done. On the other hand, farmers have not. So how do you balance those seemingly competing interests when it comes to tariffs?
I'm not interested in tariffs at all as a long-term thing. They ought to all be gone, like most of us compete here in the U.S. I think President Trump, though, actually recognized that it's time to rectify these things, and I knew he was going to use it as a stick for short term, and I was surprised that it's now been resolved in the three most important places, the EU, Mexico, and Canada. The Chinese are different. And I never did think tariffs was going to be an effective tool with them, and that's proven to be the case. Once I'm elected our next senator, when I can bend the president's ear, if that hasn't been resolved, that needs to quickly change.
But at the same time then, all those Hoosier farmers out here hear you say, vote for me if you want to support President Trump's agenda. Well, they're looking at, for them, one of the biggest things of President Trump's agenda that's hurting them is tariffs.
And I agree. And most farmers I talk to, in this case, all of them were still willing to give it a little time.
Republicans have been railing against Obamacare for a long time now, pretty much since it was passed. And at least in Indiana, that's generally been a successful strategy. But over the last couple of years, with Republicans in control completely in Washington, D.C., they haven't been able to come up with that repeal and replace, which I think is what most Hoosiers really care about. It's not so much the repeal at this point. It's really about that replace.
And I agree 100%. And 10 years ago, when I had a raucous meeting with my current insurance providers, I said, I'm fed up with you telling me I'm lucky it's only going up 5 to 10%. When I took them on, I said, I wanted to make sure you cover pre-existing conditions and no cap on coverage. And that's the difference between somebody like me that's trying to actually lower costs and provide good coverage. Somebody like the senator signed on to Obamacare without having the foresight that it was doomed to fail.
I want to ask about the issue of tax reform. How can you say, on the one hand, I'm really concerned about the deficit, and on the other hand say you would have supported a bill that adds billions to the deficit?
When you cut taxes, you're going to generate more economic activity. It gave businesses, and especially small ones, the job creators, it gave us, if you were successful in paying taxes, more jingo in your pocket. We need to share it with our employees. You don't hear many conservatives saying it.
The realities of that bill, though, are that the biggest and most sustained benefits go to those who are in the much higher income brackets. So do you think that the average Hoosier is feeling like they got a good enough deal out of that?
Nancy Pelosi referred to it as crumbs, and now incrementally, just through lower withholding, that's approaching the $1,200 to $1,500 for the average middle income taxpayer. They are now saying, yes, I can feel it, it's been there, it's real.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me.
You bet.
Many expect Indiana's U.S. Senate campaign to go down to the wire this November. Lucy Brenton could have an impact on such a tight race. We talk with her about her goals and why she ran.
How would you view being a U.S. Senator as a libertarian?
As a libertarian, my job in the U.S. Senate would really to return us to constitutional values. The very first thing that I would do is look at what laws have been passed that are unconstitutional and work towards repealing those. We must go back to the master contract that governs this country, and that's the Constitution.
How do you envision doing that as presumably one libertarian among 99 other Republicans and Democrats for the most part?
It's funny because I also see my role there as a referee, to be somebody that can cross the line and say, let's work together. Because when the Republicans work with the Democrats, it's usually for something that's going to collude against the American public, increase taxes, get those Christmas tree bills that are so famous passed. But my job as a libertarian would bring people to the point of consensus on freedom.
There's been a lot of discussion in this campaign about sort of how you represent Hoosiers when it comes to working with President Trump. How would you view your role as it comes to working with President Trump in D.C.?
My role would then be to hold him back from doing the things that are unconstitutional. My role is to hold people to the Constitution. That's the master contract. I think what we saw in the debate on October 8th was Senator Donnelly trying to prove how Republican he is, and of course Senator Braun with the ACA trying to prove how Democrat he is. What they're proving is that they are more of the same.
How do you define success when it comes to this sort of the tariffs that have been in play over the last year and a half?
How are these subsidies that are given to replace the money lost by tariffs affecting the average individual? The average Hoosier is paying multiple times for that tariff, first in the price of corn, then in the price of the subsidies to the farmers. So it's absolutely unacceptable that we're being stolen from at every level. I believe in zero corporate income taxes. The reason our jobs are being outsourced is so that we can keep prices low by not having as many corporate taxes included in the price. Having corporate taxes of zero would allow our corporations to stay in this country, keep prices low.
How do you replace the money that would be lost by zeroing out those taxes?
The money isn't lost anywhere. The money is simply in the consumer's hands instead of the government's. So if I pay $10 for a product instead of $15 because of the taxes, now the consumer pays $10 and the other $5 stays in the consumer's pocket where it belongs.
There's also the issue of health care. Is there any role for government in health care in your mind?
There is no role in government for health care in my mind. When government enters a market, it disrupts it. It's an unseen hand that moves prices up. When you take people out of the position of actually paying for their own health care, they don't know how much it costs. I'll use myself as an example. When I worked for the phone company, I had amazing insurance. I had a birth, baby number 7, that was over $15,000. And I literally did not have even an aspirin. There was no OBGYN there. It was a midwife-assisted birth. But yet with my baby number 9, born at home, that baby was $4,000. That's it. It's an $11,000 cost differential because there's no competition and you are insulated from the cost by the insurance companies. Do you want to know why your premiums are so high? That's it. It's that $1,000 aspirin.
If you remove government entirely from healthcare, though, doesn't that put everything in the hands of the insurance companies? And is that what people want?
No, it puts it back in the hands of the consumer and the provider where it should be.
The tax reform bill. Something that Mike Braun obviously supports, something that Joe Donnelly says was bad for this country in the long term. If you had been in the U.S. Senate when the tax reform bill came up, how would you have voted?
I will vote for anything that increases freedom and reduces costs, so I would have voted for it, but I don't think it went far enough. When I reviewed it, it looked like Trump took 35 to 21%, from 35 to 21% on the corporate income tax. That's great. That means that consumers are going to pay less, but it's not nearly good enough.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thank you.
Now for headlines, we go over to Barbara Brosier, who has the latest on this week's top stories.
Thanks, Joe. The Hoosier National Forest is working on a planned 4,000-acre logging project in the Lake Monroe watershed. Friends of Lake Monroe hosted a public meeting last night to discuss the proposal. Conservation advocates argue that logging is a highly invasive process, and officials should consider their alternatives.
We can have the patience to allow this forest resource to follow a natural succession, and it isn't going to happen overnight.
The Hoosier National Forest will continue conducting research and getting public feedback before scheduling the project for next year. Indiana Attorney General Curtis Hill won't face criminal charges for sexual misconduct allegations against him. The Inspector General's report says multiple witnesses say Hill's conduct was, quote, inappropriate, creepy, and unwelcome. But the special prosecutor won't bring a criminal case. Gabrielle McLemore is one of the 4 women who publicly accused Hill.
What has happened here today has told women that when we come forward, that when we share what happens to us, that, you know, we can be believed, but that doesn't really mean anything.
Governor Eric Holcomb says Tuesday's developments don't change things. He says Hill violated the executive branch's zero-tolerance sexual harassment policy. Indiana Supreme Court heard a case this week that challenges what Marion County police and prosecutors do with proceeds from property they seize and sell. Some Indiana taxpayers say those agencies are violating the state's constitution by keeping the money for themselves rather than putting it into the common school fund.
The Indiana Constitution is the highest law of the state, and it yields to no legislative act.
A recent change says law enforcement officials can only keep a percentage of the money for themselves. There's no timeline for a decision.
And Barbara, we're talking about millions of dollars here, statewide, right?
Yes, a few $1 million every year that police seize worth of property.
Barbara, thank you very much. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. One Hoosier farmer went out in his cornfields to try and find a way to thank President Trump for opening up E15 ethanol sales year-round. And we head out to what is said to be one of the most haunted cemeteries in Indiana to find out how it got its spooky reputation. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
WFIU News Team connects Indiana to the world. We bring you the top news of the day on radio, TV, and online. We round up the stories that have people talking each week and dig deep into the issues that affect your community the most. The WTIU WFIU News Team is where you are and telling your story.
In a time of change, where can you find in-depth reporting and thoughtful analysis? Washington Week on PBS. Join moderator Robert Costa.
When I was at the Capitol this week, I encountered the same.
And a panel of award-winning journalists.
You're seeing a divided nation, and you're seeing.
For insights and perspective.
Tonight there was a key development in the Senate.
You won't find anywhere else.
What a week.
Washington Week.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. E15 ethanol will be sold year-round. President Trump made the announcement earlier this month. And as Samantha Horton reports, one Hoosier farmer found a big way to thank the president.
Bruce Buchanan has been farming for more than 4 decades. When President Trump announced year-round E15 sales, he wanted to show his appreciation. He and a few others came up with the idea over a cup of coffee. But Buchanan says he never expected the response it received.
I mean, I'm on the internet like a lot of people. I'm not on to the extent that a lot of people are. So this has a mind of its own. I have never dreamed that we would get the response from this that we've had.
While farmers and those in the E15 industry cheer the effort, Purdue University agricultural economist Wally Tyner says the projected sales might not be as big as some claimed.
I think E15 is going to be very slow to take off. The majors, in all likelihood, are not going to do it. I mean, why would Exxon or another major advance E15, which just takes 5% of their market share away?
Tyner says his policy change comes at a time when farmers and the E15 industry are hurting.
People grab for straws, people grab for hope. I just don't think that the reality is going to be a substantial increase in demand. There will be some, but I don't think it's going to be large.
But Buchanan says every sale, no matter how small, helps.
We have the ability to help feed the world, but by the same token, it starts at home.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Samantha Horton.
And we ask Hoosiers what they want to know about the Hoosier State as part of our Inquire Indiana project. Indianapolis resident Grady Ray has a question about how Stepp Cemetery in Morgan Monroe State Forest became one of the most well-known spots in Indiana for hauntings. Tyler Lake ventured out somehow without getting too spooked out to find the answer.
As you step into this clearing, you might not be able to see what most people find spooky, but people all over the state have heard the stories. These are tales of a ghostly woman in black who appear in the cemetery, drawn to a baby's grave, and a somehow spooky tree stump that came to be known as the Warlock Chair. These are the constants in the ever-changing lore of Stepp Cemetery. Over the years, the stories morph and grow, as any good ghost story should. New layers are added and old details lost. A curious Hoosier wanted to know why this place had such a spooky reputation. Cemeteries are often magnets for those looking for a scare, but what's so unique about Stepp? Well, according to a volume on Indiana folklore, most of the ghost stories seem to date back not much further than the 1950s, and many variations feature spirits who died in car accidents nearby. But the cemetery itself is much older.
The oldest gravestone may be of Isaac Hartstock, who was a veteran of the War of 1812 and died in 1851.
And for years, Stepp appeared to be just another rural cemetery. The first sign of anything unsavory here was around the turn of last century. According to Indiana Folklore Volume 5, the Crabbites, a mostly undocumented, somewhat fringe Christian sect, may have used the cemetery for some ritualistic practices. After a brief residency in the area, the Crabbites pulled up stakes and moved to Brown County. Rhonda Dunn has done some digging in the Brown County History Center's archives to find out the unusual history of the short-lived group.
There's one part in Revelations where it said something about 4 corners of the earth where the angels would come. So the Crabbites believed that the earth was square because it mentioned 4 corners. And they had strange beliefs like that.
According to Indiana folklore, one June Fulford recalls her grandfather's story of chasing folks out of the cemetery. Her grandfather, who had served in some official capacity in the area, was called upon to disperse, with a bullwhip, a group of Crabbites engaged in ritualized sexual license. That was the only story like that I came across, but Dunn says the group's leader, William Crabb, did have some unusual practices.
It was more like a circus draw. People wanted to come actually see somebody get bit by a snake and see if it was actually true.
While the Crabbites weren't in the area long, they left their mark. After their departure, the cemetery gained a less than wholesome reputation. And the rural cemetery got even more remote in 1929 when it became part of the Morgan Monroe State Forest. And it's likely this remoteness only added to the lore.
Once you're out here, it all makes sense. There are no cars passing by, no lights, no civilization to speak of. All you can hear is the wind rustling through the trees, and all you can really see are the broken headstones scattered about. A chill has even set in. It's the perfect place for a ghost sighting.
Most of the stories about Stepp date back to the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. And as more teenagers got cars during those decades, they needed places to get away. Folklore texts say Stepp became a place for beer blasts and other late-night get-togethers for young people in the area. And as the kids gathered, the stories grew. The most well-known involves that ghostly woman in black, who for decades has roamed the cemetery, sometimes exhuming what some say is her dead child from his grave. That grave dates back decades and still sits in the back corner of the cemetery, where people continue to adorn it with toys. The story goes, a tree stump near the baby's grave became the place the woman in black set to hold the ghostly child. Then that stump somehow became the Warlock's chair, and curses of delayed death wove themselves into the fabric of the cemetery. And while it's always a little scary being out in the woods alone, I didn't see anything out of the ordinary. except broken headstones. And while we all love a good ghost story, the outsized reputation of Stepp has brought it more than its fair share of destruction and vandalism. The Warlock chair is gone now, but the stories remain. Ask enough people in Monroe County, even across the state, and you'll hear stories about sightings of women in black, tingling neck hairs, and even some new tales that in time will richen the lore of this sleepy cemetery in the woods. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Tyler Lake.
We want to hear questions you have about Indiana, no matter how spooky the answers. Just go to WTIU.org/InquireIndiana to submit your questions. And that's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville Fiber, the Gigacity Company, fiber internet, HD, and digital IPTV in southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Mallard Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis, lawmg.com. The IU School of Education, preparing teachers, scholars, and administrators to improve teaching in Indiana and around the world. education.indiana.edu. IU Alumni Association, connecting IU's network of alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships, advocacy, and volunteerism. alumni.iu.edu. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.